Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with another episode of Entitled Parents. Today's episode is gonna be extra special and gonna be a banger, and I know you're gonna love this one. We managed to hit the like goal of 3,000, so here's your extra long Entitled Parents video. But to add to that, if we can hit 4,000 likes on this video, the next episode of Entitled Parents will be just as long. So, like the video, then sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. My father is so entitled that I could fill a whole book of stories about him. He based just about every aspect of his parenting on traditional masculinity, the good and, more often than not, the bad. He tried to mold me into as many traditional male roles as he could, and one of his attempts was to try and get me into American football. Now, I can give my dad credit for at least trying to get me into some sort of extracurricular activity, but the way he went about it made it seem like it was more for his sake instead of mine. My dad enrolled me into a youth football summer camp when I was around 8. This was the age minimum at the time, and I was a little intimidated at first and didn't like being pushed around by the other kids. However, the coaches were encouraging and helped guide me through it so that I wouldn't be afraid of being tackled. My dad came by to watch me whenever he could and quickly established his role as the soccer dad, or in this case, the football dad who'd scream and yell at everyone, including their own kid, if the game wasn't going in their favor. He would scream and yell things like, "That wasn't no foul, you son of a witch. That kid can't kick for crap. My ex-wife makes better calls than that." There were more than a few times where coaches or someone working for the camp had to calm my dad down when he got too riled up. My dad had me take football after school and in another year of summer camp. Throughout that time, I'd gotten good at football, but I just didn't enjoy it. It was in a large part due to my dad rubbing it in so much, but it was also because I just didn't like being so aggressive with the other kids. I was a strong kid, but I didn't like being aggressive unless I felt that I was in danger. I mostly wanted to do more mild-mannered activities like reading books or playing board games. Hence why I'm currently studying literature in a community college. To my dad, the idea of a little boy not being a physically aggressive loose cannon was like seeing an alien from another planet. So despite my protests, he had me continue playing until one day I couldn't. The following summer, I was in the middle of a lively game when about 3/4 of the way in, I fell and my foot was killing me. I tried getting up, but my foot hurt like crazy whenever I tried to walk on it. I tried going to the bench towards the coach and my dad followed me down. He said, "OP, what are you doing? You're about to win." I say to him, "Dad, I think I've twisted my ankle." And he says, "Nonsense, you can't twist an ankle. It's not like your foot can go backwards, just walk it off." I reply to him saying, "Dad, it really hurts." And my coach says, "Sir, we'll have to take a look at your son's foot if you're concerned about injury." My dad, now switching gears, says, "Don't listen to him. He's just trying to get out of it." Then turns to me and says, "Get back out there and finish the game." I start to say, "But Dad," and he cuts me off and says, "No buts, except yours getting back out onto the field." Too tired and in too much pain to protest, I went back out onto the field trying to keep my weight off my hurt foot. Before long, I fell on the same foot, and this time, the pain shot from 0 to 100 in a nanosecond. I was on the field, crying and clutching onto my foot while the coach called a timeout. I was taken aside and gasped in horror when they took off my shoe. My foot was bent to the left with the ankle side of it completely red purple. The coach called an ambulance and I was taken to hospital where I was treated for a broken ankle. The whole time, my dad kept saying things like, "How could this happen?" or "You were so close," basically blaming me for supposedly costing my team the win. I cried both in pain from my ankle and for letting down my dad. Later on, Dad begrudgingly told me that the doctor said I can't play any more football for the rest of the summer. So he signed me out of the program and never signed me up for another one since. I suppose that was one silver lining in this whole fiasco. I was never again forced to play a sport that I hated. My dad ended up exploiting the perks of having a temporarily handicapped son, but that is another story. Moral of the story, just because you didn't fulfill your sports dream as a kid, doesn't mean that your kid is obliged to fulfill it for you, especially if it risks their literal neck, or in my case, my ankle. So as far as I'm concerned, when you cross the line of your behavior directly impacting the health and well-being of your child, you go away from being just an entitled parent to not only an irresponsible parent, but a parent who I believe is probably not fit to have kids. But taking that side of things away, just the dad in general is the type of person that everyone hates when you go to a sporting event. The one that's overly passionate, thinks that they're in charge of everything, and just takes the general fun of a sporting event away from everyone involved. So this story may need some background. It was Thanksgiving of 2019. A lot of people had shown up, many relatives and their kids. In general, everyone was having a good time, but there was one aunt that no one liked. If you stood next to her, you could probably see entitlement dripping off of her. Nobody had invited her to any family occasions since she threw a tantrum. Yes, a 24-year-old woman at the time threw a tantrum because she was not included in my late grandpa's will. She was your typical Karen with the whole don't trust medicine sort of crap. So dinner had been served, everyone is eating and in general having a great time. The kids are at the children's table in the kitchen, while the adults and some of the older and more mature kids and teens are in the living room. About 20 minutes after we start eating, we hear screams. My cousin and I jump up and rush to the kitchen, which was the origin of the screams, and we see that kids are running out of there left, right and center. The scene in there is chaos. There were sticks on the ground, marshmallows strewn everywhere, a towel on fire on the stove, and sticks burning on the stove. And just like that, the fire alarm went off. My dad told us to stand back, and with a fire extinguisher, he most likely saved our house. So after rounding up about 7 kids, we got cracking on figuring out what had happened, although it was pretty clear. My grandma asked what happened here, and cousin 1 responds, "We were eating when the entitled kid said that we should roast marshmallows." Then cousin 2 went outside and gathered sticks. The entitled kid turned on the stove, and cousin 1's stick started to burn, so he dropped it on the stove by accident. Then the entitled kid got a towel to try and fan out the flames, which also caught on fire. Then cousin 3 screamed, which brought everyone here. Everyone now looks at the entitled kid, and my grandma says, "Do you have anything to say?" while looking at the entitled mum. The entitled mum says, "What's wrong? He was just having fun, plus nothing serious happened." My grandma responds with, "Nothing serious happened? Your child nearly burnt your sister's house to the ground." The entitled mum just says, "Exactly. It was only nearly." My grandma, clearly very unhappy, says, "So are you going to apologize or not?" The entitled mum had the audacity to say, "Apologize for what? He's just a kid." My grandma then proceeded to kick her out with a few swear words for the road. Honestly, she and her kid ruined our whole Thanksgiving because after we'd finished with this whole ordeal, our food was cold. Quite a lot of family members proceeded to cut her out of their lives, and the last time I heard of her was March this year when she somehow found my social media accounts and she came to beg me to ask my mum to get her some money, and I promptly proceeded to block her. Honestly, no family needs that kind of negativity in their life, especially at a time like Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holidays you like to celebrate. Even having someone like that around just completely ruins the vibe. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure every family has a certain degree of tiffs when they all come together for a big event, but for something like this where it was so simple for the entitled mum just to be like, "Yep, you know what, my son stuffed up, I'm sorry, let's move on, and I'll keep a better eye on him next time," just seems like such a pathetic thing to ruin a family event over. First off, I'd like to say that yesterday was our 1-year anniversary, and I'm leaving for basic training on November 24, so I wouldn't be there for her 18th birthday in December. My girlfriend is 17 and I'm 18. My girlfriend's mum loves to stalk all of my girlfriend's transactions and will question every transaction that she makes. She also loves to look at where she is 24/7, and she's the kid that actually listens in the family. Today I found out that her mum despises me due to me going into the military and being poor. Today, my girlfriend texted me this. My mum told him not to tell me this, but Keegan, who is my girlfriend's brother, is a super nice guy and told me anyway. So basically, when she was at her friend's house, she said that they were talking bad about me the whole time. My mum said that she doesn't understand why I'm basing my whole life around you, and that I do good in school, so she doesn't think that I should do online college. She's wanting to do graphic arts when we move into military housing, and he said that she was complaining, saying that I never want to drive anywhere. For example, to the store to grab one thing for them, like, I'm sorry, but you never ask me to do that. And 2, I actually will go drive and you just want me to because you're too lazy to do it yourself. I'd like to start off with the fact that I live in the poor class and my girlfriend lives in the wealthy class. Today I also found out that my girlfriend's mum wanted to know what I bought her for our anniversary. I know it might not sound that bad, but she believes that I should have evened the money out since she spent almost $1,000 on me for our anniversary, despite the fact that I didn't want her to. The only reason why she did this is because recently she found out that I've gone into debt 3 times to make her happy, especially during the hard times, by bringing her to nice dinner places, going on expensive dates, and buying her things that she's always dreamed of. So she brought me a diffuser that I've always wanted, a light alarm, and she's making me a custom Xbox controller. I asked my girlfriend if she wanted anything for the anniversary, and she just said that she only wanted a stuffed penguin that was $20 and nothing else. Her mum believes that I'm not right for her. She's made my girlfriend cry millions of times because of our relationship and many things. It's to the point where my girlfriend wants to move out and never make communication with her side of the family ever again. A little while ago, I broke down thinking very badly about myself, but it did make me question. I've never been verbal or physical with her, and I haven't and will never cheat on her. So what is the entitled mum's problem? I feel like a story like this is probably where the origins of entitled parents started. You know, it's those upper class wealthy people who look down on other people just because they don't have the same level of wealth as them, and they think that because they're more wealthy than the other people, they deserve better things in life. And while they might be able to afford some things in life that are better, that doesn't make them a better person, and it doesn't mean that someone in their family can't date somebody who's not on the exact same level as them. I don't believe this is every wealthy person, but there's definitely some people out there like this, and I think the entitled mum should just be grateful that her daughter is dating someone who honestly seems like a pretty good guy with his head screwed on straight. My significant other and I were renting a ground floor unit at a really nice apartment complex. I wouldn't say it was a luxury apartment or anything, but our ground floor unit had a little patio out the back that led into a really nice courtyard area with hammocks, a walking path, outdoor fireplace and seating area, etc. A lot of people walk their dogs out there or let their kids play out in the grass, including us. We have a 1-year-old cane corso. We got her when we'd been living in the unit for about 2.5 months, and she was only 8 weeks old at the time. She's a really good dog and we've trained her well. We could let her out to go potty and she'd come right back, even if there were distractions, people or dogs out there. We always stood on the patio and watched her anyways, because our pet agreement said that we couldn't leave our dog unattended. Then we'd go pick up her poop right away if she pooped, which is also part of the pet agreement, as I'm sure is standard at most apartment complexes. We kept a small step trash can outside specifically for her poop bags, because we didn't want to throw them away inside, and the only outdoor trash cans were on the other side of the building, which I agree is super dumb. It was a really small trash can, like the kind you tuck into the bathroom between the toilet and the wall. We also had our poop bags hanging on our patio door handle for easy access, so we didn't have to hunt for them every time we needed them. The entitled mum and the entitled kid moved in on the ground floor of our building 2 units down from us. No biggie. We ran into her one day carrying in groceries, and my significant other held open the door for her. She seemed kind of Karenish, but was polite, and her kid, who was probably 10 or 11 years old, didn't even look up from his phone. Whatever, that's pretty typical of kids these days. They also had a dog. A little black and white fluffy thing, super cute, but not trained very well. Didn't know what kind of dog it was, but it was much smaller than our already giant puppy. After about 2 weeks or so, we realized that there were dog turds in the grass right off of our patio. We found out the hard way because my boyfriend stepped in it the first time. Luckily, he wasn't barefoot. They were clearly not our dog's turds, as 1, we always picked up her poop right after she went, and 2, they were obviously from a small dog, not our 70-pound puppy. We'd been in the apartment about 7 or 8 months at that point, and we'd never had an issue with this, so we figured that it was the entitled mum's little dog. I wrote her a polite note that basically was like, "Hey neighbor, we noticed that some of your dog's poops aren't being picked up and are right off our patio. Per the pet agreement that we all have to sign, we all need to be picking up our own dog's poop each time they go. I'm sure it was an accident and you just didn't notice, so if you could just make sure to do that going forward, we'd appreciate it. Signed, your neighbors a few units down." She wasn't home, so I slipped it under the door and went back to my apartment. A couple of hours later, the entitled mum is banging on my door and gets really angry with me, insisting that it couldn't have been her dog and how dare I assume. I felt really bad and apologized immediately. I said that I didn't mean to offend her and it must have been someone else. She told me never to bother her with crap like this again and stormed off. I was like, okay. And not 3 days later, I was sitting on my patio with a book, enjoying the cool weather, when I see their little dog run out of their back door, no one with it, and it comes over to me. I said hello to the pup because I love puppies, and then it took a crap right in front of the patio, ran back home, and scratched on the door to be let back inside. I saw the entitled kid slide the door open enough to let the dog in, then close it again without coming outside to pick up the poop. I was annoyed here because I saw it with my own eyes that it was their dog and no one was even watching it when it was outside. So I grabbed a poop bag, picked up the poop, and wrote another less polite note about the entitled mum's kid neglecting to watch the dog or come to check if it had pooped and pick up after it. I dropped the poop bag and their note on the patio right by the door, then went back to my reading. The entitled mum was quicker to come by this time and stomped right up to me, waving the note around, then stated that her kid was just a kid and probably just forgot to check. I said that I didn't care and that her kid was old enough to stand outside for 3 minutes and come and pick up the dog's poop. She said that there's no poop bags or trash cans on this side of the building and that she didn't feel comfortable making her kid walk all the way around the building for that. The next part is my own fault in hindsight. I suggested that she put a trash can like mine on her patio and leave their own poop bags handy like we do for our dog. She eyed our stuff, huffed some more, rolled her eyes, refused to do anything about the poop, and walked off. At this point, I was super annoyed. I stalked my patio door for the next couple of days as much as I could, just waiting. And sure enough, of day 2, in the evening when I was about to give up, I see the puppy run outside towards my patio. I whipped out my phone, took some pictures of the dog outside alone, which is not allowed, and pictures of the dog pooping, and then took another photo an hour later of the poop still there, and the timestamps of all of them. Then, I sent an email to the apartment office people who were always pretty nice, and they responded quickly that they would give the entitled mum a warning about it. And sure enough, the entitled mum comes back again to get mad at me and yell at me about how petty I was to report them to the office, and now they had a $150 fine for not picking up their dog poop. It's worth noting that these fines were rare. Poo prints were not used at this complex, and in order for the office to fine someone for dog poop, they had to have proof that it was a specific tenant's dog poop and that it wasn't picked up, hence the photos I'd taken and the timestamps. I told her that I'd tried to be nice about it with her twice before, and it was her own fault at that point for not abiding by the terms of the pet agreement that we all had to sign, or everyone who had a dog at least. She went off about how she's a single mum and she works during the day and her precious baby can't be expected to pick up after their dog. I told her that a 10 or 11-year-old was plenty old enough to pick up after a dog, and that if they weren't responsible enough, then maybe the kid shouldn't be letting the dog out at all, and she should be the one to do it, and maybe whoever is home with him should be looking after it. She got angry, told me that I had no idea how to be a single mum, and that her mum stays with him during the day and shouldn't be expected to look after her kid and her dog, and she stomped off again. I expected to hear more about it, but didn't. The ironic part is, I am a single mum. My kid isn't my significant other's, and I raised him alone for 2.5 years before I met my significant other. So yes, I do know how hard it is, and I live 1,000 miles away from my closest family member, so I never even had the luxury of being able to have my mum watch my kids. Over the next couple of weeks, we didn't find any more dog turds on our patio. We did notice our poop bags were depleting and our trash can filling up way more quickly than usual. I had my suspicions and wanted to test it. We had recently bought some small security cameras for inside our apartment for different reasons, and I had my boyfriend set one up outside on the patio. We faced it where I could see our door and trash can, but didn't point to the rest of the courtyard or other people's units, as yeah, we respect privacy around here. Sure enough, the same evening my boyfriend set it up, I see the entitled kid walk onto our patio, take a poop bag, walk out a frame, then come back in to throw it in our trash can. Okay, now I'm pissed, but also not trying to fight this lady or her kid. So, I moved the poop bags to the inside door handle. It's a glass door so you can still see them, but we always lock our sliding door. Next morning, I hear someone knocking on the back patio door, and I go to see the entitled kid standing there, looking annoyed. I didn't open the door, I just spoke loudly enough to ask what did he need. He demanded a poop bag for his dog's poop. I said I'm sorry, but these are our poop bags for our dog and they weren't free for anyone else to use. Also, the apartment provides poop bags in a dispenser near the trash can on the other side of the building. The kid started demanding a poop bag, saying his mum told him he could use ours, slapping his hand on the glass a few times, trying to scare me maybe. Cause yes, I'm so terrified of a 10-year-old boy, and finally screaming at me that he's telling his mother on me. I said to him, fine, go ahead, I'll tell her the same thing. And sure enough, a few minutes later, the entitled mum is standing on my patio, also demanding a poop bag for her dog's poop. I denied her a bag and asked her to please step off my patio as she was making me feel unsafe and uncomfortable, as my significant other wasn't home at the time. She told me that I was a bratty child, I'm 24 by the way, and she demanded that I let her use my poop bags as I'd already told her that she could before. I said no, I told you to get some yourself and do what I do. Keep them close by and put your own trash can on your patio. Not use the bags that I buy with my own money for my own dog and then fill up my tiny trash can with your dog's poop. I pointed out that she could use a plastic shopping bag if she didn't want to buy her own poop bags, or she could use the bags the complex provided on the other side of the building. She kept going off on me, and I finally told her that if she didn't leave my patio, I'd call the police as she was harassing me. The apartment office was closed on Sundays, and of course, it was a Sunday. She acted like she was going to call my bluff, but then my boyfriend got home and walked up behind me to ask what was going on, and she ended up dragging her kid away, again, leaving the poop in the grass off my patio. So, once she was gone, I took another time-stamped picture of the dog poop, downloaded the footage from my security camera of her kid stealing my poop bags and throwing them in the trash can, and the footage from that morning of them yelling at me and demanding my bags and me denying them. And I emailed all of it to the apartment management. I told them that she made me feel unsafe and uncomfortable in my own home, and that she and her child felt entitled to come on my patio and take my belongings. I also went outside, picked up her dog's poop, looked in the trash can on my patio, and pulled out the bags with her dog's poop. They were significantly smaller than my dog's poops, as I'm sure any dog owner could tell the difference in poops of a 12-pound dog versus a 70-pound dog. I went and opened all the bags and dumped the poop straight on her patio right outside the door. On Monday, I heard back from the office lady who said she would take care of it. By Friday, there was a moving truck and the entitled mum and the entitled kid were moving out. I'm pretty sure they were evicted. After talking to some of our other, much friendlier neighbours, it turns out we weren't the only ones who had been complaining about her. They'd only lived in the complex for like 2 or 3 months before they'd made so many enemies that they were kicked out. Sometimes I think I should feel bad for playing a part in them getting evicted, but honestly, I can't bring myself to feel guilty about it. It's not my fault that she was a lazy entitled mum who couldn't even be bothered to get a shopping bag to pick up her dog's crap. I never heard from her about the turds that I dropped on her patio, but I like to think she stepped in them without looking and knew better than to come and complain to me about it. Also, I'm sure they were given more than a week to vacate, as those are the tenancy laws here, but she packed up and left like a bat out of hell. I guess she didn't want to stay somewhere that she was clearly seen as an enemy.
I'll tell you what, before I even say anything about this story, that was probably the longest entitled parent story I've ever read, and similar to that awesome choosing beggar story from yesterday, had a bit of everything. It had your entitled parent, it had a bit of revenge, and it just had a really good storyline as well. I love the fact that the entitled mum got evicted, and quite frankly I believe got what she deserved, because if she can't follow a simple rule like pick up your dog's poop and, don't steal things from your neighbours, then it's probably not a good idea to be living in such a close proximity to other people. I wish there was a story from the entitled mum's point of view and how she reacted when she got evicted, but I guess we'll never know.
So, when I was turning 18, my friends wanted me to come around for dinner to celebrate. They are like family to me, and I always call them my second family. I had less than 20 pounds to my name, but I decided that I was going to buy some ingredients and make a pretty birthday cake for the party. Yeah, I know it's a bit sad to bake your own cake for your birthday, but my family were not going to waste money on me. Anyway, I started off in the morning and spent hours baking and decorating a beautiful sponge cake with fondant, edible glitter, and sugar roses. I was pretty damn proud, to say the least. I told each and every person in the house not to touch it. I even put a note on the cake telling people not to touch it. It was delicate, and after all, the birthday boy or girl gets to cut the first slice. I went out to go run some errands. I wanted to go straight to my second family's house, but I had to go home and get the cake. The minute I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. I ran to the fridge and the cake was gone. I knew it. I knew that I couldn't trust any of them. I angrily went to demand an explanation, but before I could say anything, the whole family told me how delicious the cake was and how it was so pretty. I was angry crying at this point and shouting that I told everyone to leave it alone. It was mine and that it was not to share and that I needed it for a party at my friend's house. Their excuse, you might wonder, is that I never told them. I threw the note at them and yelled even louder that they knew. They all knew. They were just selfish pigs who can't keep their hands to themselves. They say, but we saved you a slice, and that slice was wafer thin. I smashed the plate on the floor and stormed out. I went straight to my second family's home, crying, and told them what happened. They were all really upset for me. They gave me some wonderful gifts and had a whip around for me. We even made another cake together. I stayed with them for about a week before I went home, and when I went home, I got yelled at for breaking a plate and being ungrateful. Just FYI, I'm 25 now and I moved out 2 years ago when my boyfriend proposed. We've been living with his granddad while saving up for the wedding and to move out. We just found a very nice little flat pretty close to granddad's house, so we'll be moving out in a couple of weeks. My brothers moved out a little while ago and have since grown out of their phases. My sister though still lives with my mum. She is very bratty and entitled and has my mum wrapped around her little fingers and acts like the golden child around my mum. My stepdad, however, never even touched the cake. He knew how important it was to me and he's always treated me like his own daughter, and we have a lot of respect for each other. I don't really talk to my old family much now, but I do still see my second family a lot and I'm in a much better place. It just felt so good to remove them from my life. Almost like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. I do have a lot more entitled parent stories, so I'll keep posting them whenever I get time.
Man, honestly, a story like this hits pretty hard. This person, who, let's be honest, seems like a pretty genuine and decent human being, who did something that they were extremely proud of and put a lot of effort into making, had their own family intentionally, or at least it seems that way, go out of their way to completely disregard how the OP felt and ruin her birthday. The entire entitled family, bar the stepdad, should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, but let's be honest, they're an entitled family and probably couldn't care less.
So, I've worked as a lifeguard on and off for the last several years, which means I've dealt with my fair share of parents. Some good, some bad, and others just awful. This is a story about an awful mother when I was working for a mouse with white gloves. Not the park, but their hotels. So we have water slides at each pool at our resort, and the one I worked at leads straight into the pool. This causes issues for kids who aren't strong swimmers because it creates a constant moving tide. We always advise a life jacket if you're unsure of your child's swimming ability. On this spring day, a child decided to go down the slide. Nothing unusual. The issue was, this kid could not handle the water current at the end of the slide. This kid was straight up struggling. My coworker did the sensible thing, jumps in and saves the kid. The mother of the kid comes over and immediately starts yelling. She says that her kid was completely fine and did not need saving. But I'll let you know that this kid had no business not wearing a life jacket, and everyone who saw agreed. My coworker just sucked it up and apologized. Man, imagine being a lifeguard and being berated for saving a young kid's life. Like, it's literally your job to identify when people are struggling to swim, jump in, save their life, and make sure they're okay. Apparently that's not good enough for the entitled mother, and she would have just rathered her kids stay in the water and struggle to stay afloat, as if that would have been the best outcome. But hey, I guess if nothing else, you can't fault the entitled mother for her belief in her kid. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button down below, and like I said at the start of the video, 4,000 likes on this video and the next episode of Entitled Parents will be just as long. A quick thank you for hitting our like goal yesterday. I cannot explain how much I appreciate you guys for that. And we had a lot of new viewers, so if you are new around here, don't forget to subscribe for daily Reddit content. Otherwise, on your screen right now, you're going to see 2 of my awesome videos, one of which I would highly suggest you click on in order to go down an incredible rabbit hole of Entitled Parents. But that is going to be that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Pro Revenge. Bye.